A feature that's been around in Illustrator for quite some time is called Smart Guides. However, now in Illustrator CS4, the feature has gotten a pretty significant upgrade. In fact, that's also prompted the Illustrator team to turn Smart Guides on by default. So first, let's take a look at where this setting is, and then we'll talk about how it's used. Under the View menu, there's an option here called Smart Guides. The keyboard shortcut for that is Command-U or Control-U on Windows. With that particular setting turned on, which is the case by default, as you move around your document and you mouse over objects, they highlight. They're also identified by words. For example, this is a path, and this is an anchor point, so on and so forth, as if we needed that information. But it can be helpful when you have very complex documents and you're mousing around, trying to identify certain areas of your file. Now, as you mouse over these particular areas, you see that they highlight, which makes it easier for you to identify which objects will be selected when you click. This prevents the trial of error of clicking on something and realizing, oh, I didn't mean to click on that, I meant to click on something else. But Smart Guides also help when you're working on a particular piece of artwork and you want to align objects together. In fact, there are many different aspects or parts of Smart Guides. Let's take a look at some of them. For example, I'm going to take this orange surfboard right here and click on it. I'm going to start to drag it. And notice that as soon as I drag it over here, a little Smart Guide pops up. That's a line that connects the middle of this surfboard with the middle of the surfboard that had the word groundswell on it. That's letting me know that right now the centers of these objects are currently aligned. And as I move this object around, those guides appear to help me identify where these are lining up to. For example, if I go like this right now and I drag it here this way, I can see that they're lining up in a certain way where they intersect. So now those particular surfboards are lined up with each other in that way. Let me press undo for a second here. I can take this entire one and move this down as well and see that right now this intersects, or here, this line right now, with the top of that surfboard, and that way I know that they're both aligned. So I don't need specific alignment or even draw out guides. As I'm moving objects and drawing them on my screen, I'm able to quickly align them. For example, when it comes to drawing, I can see that as well. I'm going to click on my regular rectangle tool, and I'm going to start to click. But before I do so, notice that as I move my cursor around, it's identifying to me where these particular paths may intersect. So if I wanted to draw a rectangle that was lined up at the top of this particular piece of artwork right here, I know that I can basically click and drag here, and now this rectangle matches from the top to the bottom of that particular surfboard. So it's very easy for me to do that without having to worry about measuring it, so on and so forth. So Smart Guides just help me as I work inside of Illustrator. Now you'll also notice one of the other things is I'm drawing a rectangle here. You can see that little gray box appears with the width and height. Again, that's also part of Smart Guides. Smart Guides is again letting me know the dimensions of my shape as I'm drawing it. I'm going to press delete to get rid of that rectangle there for a second. You can control the settings for what does or does not appear with Smart Guides in Preferences. Again, I'll go to the Preferences button here in the Control panel, and I'll go from the pop-up menu here to choose Smart Guides. And you have many different options here. Alignment guides, those are the guides that popped up as I was dragging objects that help me identify whether objects were in alignment with each other. The anchor path labels are those little words that are called anchor and path that highlighted and that appeared as I moved over the anchor points or the paths. Measurement labels, that's the little gray box that identifies the size of a rectangle or other shape as I'm drawing it. Object highlighting is basically what allows those paths to light up as I mouse over them. Transform tools allow me to basically, as I'm maybe scaling or rotating an object, will identify what angle I'm rotating an object on, or how big, or the change that has been occurring when I perform transformations, for example. And construction guides also identify to me when objects are within a certain alignment or a certain plane of other objects, for example, 90 and 45 degree angles or 135 degree angles. And I can either choose from this pop-up list of different types of angles, or I can specify up to 6 angles that I want, which could be very helpful if you create artwork that is maybe isometric or so on and so forth, where you can dial certain things in to make it happen for you automatically. Most importantly, the snapping tolerance setting is what identifies, or basically what defines, how close I have to get to an object in order for me to see that guide. Anything within 4 points will now basically allow me to snap to that particular guide and make that particular Smart Guide visible. Now you can turn some of these off. For example, I don't find it useful to identify anchor paths or labels. I think the object highlighting, in my opinion, just kind of gives me a little bit of a headache because things are like flashing all over the screen as you're mousing around. You know, the transform tools is actually pretty cool. Alignment guides are incredibly helpful, as are measurement labels. So that's kind of how I kind of leave things with Smart Guides, my preferences. The beautiful thing is that as I'm working inside of Illustrator, at any time I could use that keyboard shortcut Command-U to just simply disable the Smart Guides. Now I don't see them at all. Press Command-U, and now when I drag them, I do see them. So it's something that I can control. It's a great feature when you need it, and it's great that you can turn it off when you don't.